to actually announce what the class is, and now it's just saying class by Achyutananda Prabhu. So I'm not Rani to fix that.
Yeah, it's pretty outdated.
Meeting is now streaming live. Okay, here we go, my dear friend.
Jai.
So today's bhajan is actually recommended to be sung in the morning, but I guess somewhere in Lord Chaitanya's pastimes, it's the morning.
Sure.
And yeah, so it's called the Udilo Haruna, the song number 1, written by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And here it is. Well, let me just shut this first. Okay, we're on that page, and we'll share the screen. And great. Okay. From the book called Gitavali. And Udilo Aruna Pura Babage Vijamani Gora Amani Jage Bhakata Samua Loya Sate Gela Nagara Braje Tatai Bajalako Ganagana Tai Jajeraro Premidalla Dalla Sonara Anga Charane Nupura Baje Mukunda Madhava Yadava Hari Bolina Bolore Badana Bori Micheni Dabeshe Kilore Rati Bivasa Sharira Saje Emanadula Bamanava Deho Payaki Koro Baba Nakeho Ebena Bajile Yashoda Suta Charame Pori Belaje Udita Tapana Hoile Asta Dinogelo Boli Hoi Bebiasta Tabekene Ebe Alasa Hoi Nabaja Hridoya Raje Jivana Anitya Jana Hasa Tahinana Vida Vipada Bara Namashraya Kori Jata Netumi Takaha Apanakaje Jivera Kalyana Sadhanakam Jagati Asiye Madhurahanam Avidyatimiratapana Rupe Ridgagane Biraje Krishna Nam Shodha Koryapan Jurayo Bhakati Vinodapran Namabina Kichu Nahi Ko Aro Choda Bhuvana Maje Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare. Would you like to start with the translation, Krishna Chandra Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhu. When the rising sun appeared in the east, the jewel of the twice born, Lord Gaurasundar, awakened, and taking his devotees with him, he went all over the countryside, towns, and villages.
The mridanga's call resounded tutai, tutai, and the jhanja, large metal kartals that looked like small cymbals in that kirtan, played in time. Lord Gauranga's golden form slightly trembled in ecstatic love of Godhead, and his footbells jingled.
All the devotees chanted the names Mukunda, Madhava, Yadava, and Hari, their mouths being filled with the vibrations. They would announce to the still sleeping people, "You spend your nights uselessly sleeping and your days decorating your bodies."
You have achieved such a rare human body, but you do not care for this gift. You remain not serving the darling of Yashoda and slowly fall through your last moments to death.
With every rising and setting of the sun, a day passes and is lost. Then why do you remain idle and not serve the Lord of the heart?
This temporary life is full of various miseries. Take shelter of the holy name as your only business.
To penetrate the darkness of ignorance and bless everyone's heart, the holy name has risen like the shining sun.
Drink the pure nectar of the holy name of Krishna. There is nothing but the name to be had in the 14 worlds. It has filled the soul of Sri Bhaktivinoda Thakur.
Jai.
Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai.
Jai.
Very inspiring song.
Jai, yes, indeed. It's one of my favorites.
I remember, yeah, me too. I remember when I spent some time serving in the St. Louis Temple, my godbrother Ganapati Swami, before Mangala Artik every day. I think he already had all his japa done by 4:15 a.m. And he would sit in front of the deities before the curtains would open. And he would sing either this, Jeev Jago, or Vibhavari Shesha, the 3 morning tunes.
Yes.
Just before the curtains would open. And it was special because I've never been at any other temple. Well, but in Vrindavan, actually. In Vrindavan? No, actually, they chant Vibhavari Shesha, I think, after, because they have the Guru Vashtika for Srila Prabhupada in his Samadhi at like, I don't know, 4:15, something like that. And then they have Vibhavari Shesha for Prabhupada in the, not for Prabhupada, I mean, but for Krishna and Balaram in their mantra. Hare Krishna, Jalangi, Hare Krishna, Nandapatni.
Hare Krishna, everybody.
I just call you by your first names just so we don't get tripped up over whether I'm supposed to call you Prabhu, Mother, Mataji, Maharani. So I hope you don't mind me just calling you by your first name. Is that all right with you, Nandapatni?
Yeah. I don't hear my name anywhere else except on Sundays. So yeah.
And Jalangi's back all the way from Berlin.
Yes.
Yeah. Right now, for her, it's 1 o'clock in the morning. Can you imagine how devoted she is to come and join us at 1 o'clock in the morning?
Well, we'll have to behave ourselves then.
No loud parties. Not from our side, anyway. Okay, so we're working our way through the Bhagavad Gita, and in this case, Srila Prabhupada has given a class on both verse 21 and 22 together. It seems that sometimes he would, do a couple of verses at one time because there's a theme that's being followed. So let's get to the original Bhagavad Gita verse. Om Agyanatimanandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Okay, now where is that found? Okay. I thought we'd read from the original Gita first, and then we'll go and see what Prabhupada had to say when he was in merry old England on July 18th, 1973. Okay, but first let's read from the actual Macmillan Bhagavad Gita that Srila Prabhupada translated. The original, classic, unedited.
I've got the big old hardback cloth-bound Macmillan Gita.
Thank you. That must be worth $1 million.
I know. It's Very special.
Okay, here we go. Arjuna Uvacha. Why don't we just do it like a regular Gita class? Although I'm not here to give you a class, but why don't we just repeat it all? Arjuna Uvacha.
Oh, we're going to repeat each line.
Why not?
Arjuna Uvacha.
Senayor Ubayor Madhye.
Senayor ubayor madhye.
Ratang Shtapaya Mechuta.
Ratam stapaya mechuta.
Yavada Etan Niriksheham.
Yavadetan nirikshekam.
Yodu Kaman Avashtitam.
Yoru kamam avashtitan.
Karmaya Sahayodavyam.
Karmaya sayodavyam.
Asmin Rana Samudyame.
Asmin rana samutyame.
So Arjuna is Arjuna. Uvacha said, Senayo of the armies, Ubayo of both the parties, Madhye in between them, Ratam the chariot, Shtapaya, please keep me, my, Achuta, O infallible one, Yavat, as long as Etan, all these, Nirikshe, may look, Aham, I, Yodu, Kaman, desiring to fight, Avashtitan, arrayed on the battlefield, Kai, with whom Maya, by me, Saha, with Yodavyam, to fight with Asmin in this Rana strife, Samudyame, in the attempt. Translation. Would you like to read since we've already read the song translation, Nandapatni, would you like to read the verse and the purport, please?
Okay. Arjuna said, O infallible one, please draw my chariot between the two armies so that I may see who's present here, who's desirous of fighting, and with whom I must contend in this great battle attempt. Purport. Although Lord Shri Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, out of his causeless mercy, he was engaged in the service of his friend. He never fails in his affection for his devotees, and thus he is addressed herein as infallible. As charioteer, he had to carry out the orders of Arjuna, and since he didn't hesitate to do so, he is addressed. Hang on. And as he didn't hesitate to do so, he is addressed as infallible. Although he had accepted the position of a charioteer for his devotee, his supreme position was not challenged. In all circumstances, he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Rishikesh, the Lord of the total senses. The relationship between the Lord and his servitor is very sweet and transcendental. The servitor is always ready to render a service to the Lord. And similarly, the Lord is always seeking an opportunity to render some service to the devotee. He takes the greater pleasure in his pure devotees assuming the advantageous position of ordering him than he does in being the giver of orders. As master, everyone is under his orders, and no one is above him to order him. But when he finds that a pure devotee is ordering him, he obtains transcendental pleasure, although he is the infallible master of all circumstances.
You want to finish that?
Oh, shall I? Okay. As a pure devotee of the Lord, Arjuna had no desire to fight with his cousins and brothers, but he was forced to come onto the battlefield by the obstinacy of Duryodhana, who was never agreeable to any peace negotiation. Therefore, he was very anxious to see who the leading persons present on the battlefield were. Although there was no question of a peacemaking endeavor on the battlefield, he wanted to see them again and to see how much they were bent upon demanding an unwanted war.
I'm just meditating on this. Sometimes we're forced to fight. We don't want to. Duryodhana was obstinate. So yes, Arjuna is asking Krishna. I found an interesting point that although Krishna is the supreme controller and everyone's under his order, that Krishna finds it transcendently pleasurable to be ordered by his pure devotees. And I was just thinking about how, in our dealings with one another as devotees, we may or may not derive transcendental bliss being bossed around by one another. But Krishna likes it. Krishna likes it, right? I mean, Krishna's showing that you can actually become blissful by getting ordered around.
Yes, I mean, it's a super unique mellow in the, Vatsalya, Madhurya, etc., in all the rasas. Well, actually, no, that's not true. It's in the last three rasas, really, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah. And he takes extreme pleasure in Mother Yashoda tying him up and all these sorts of things, scolding him over his thievery and yeah.
It's almost like he does those things just so he can get chastised.
Absolutely. It does. Absolutely.
I think a perverted reflection of that is sometimes you hear of children being naughty just so they can get the attention of their parents. And if you take that into the mode of ignorance, people may even perform the most horrific things in order to get some attention. They may even murder somebody so they can get on the front page of a newspaper.
Sure. Yeah.
That's a very perverted reflection.
Yeah. Mode of ignorance, as you say.
Now, I just happen to have with me here a commentary compiled by Burijan Prabhu, based on the commentaries of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and Baladev Vijayabhushan on what they had to say about this verse. And this is brief. The compiled writings of those two, Burijan, his compilation is that this is Krishna's first appearance in Bhagavad Gita. What is he doing? He is driving Arjuna's chariot and accepting his orders. This is glorious Krishna. The supreme controller is taking orders from his devotee as if he were a menial servant. I mean, Christian theology, Islamic theology, Judaic theology, as far as I know, they have no conception of this. I mean, I'm not a scholar of all their scriptures, but I've not heard. Yes, Chandra?
Yes, there was one pastime with Jesus where he did wash the feet of his disciples. I think that was definitely a teaching moment, though, that he was trying to teach them to have the same humility toward one another.
Teaching by example.
Yes.
Thank you. Srila Prabhupada writes in his purport, although Lord Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, out of his causeless mercy, he was engaged in the service of his friend. He never fails in his affection for his devotees, and thus he is addressed herein as infallible. The relationship between the Lord and his servitor is very sweet and transcendental. The servitor is always ready to render service to the Lord, and similarly, the Lord is always seeking an opportunity to render some service to the devotee. Of all of Krishna's qualities, his Bhakta Vatsal quality is most endearing. Does anyone remember what that means? The Bhakta Vatsal quality of Krishna?
I'm just thinking, Bhaja Bhakta Vatsala Shri Gura Hari, right?
Right.
Well, isn't it referring to the friend as the friend?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, as in Vatsalya Ras.
You want to look up the term Krishna Chandra Prabhu, Bhakta Vatsala, just so we.
Yes.
I'm not saying
he I'm sorry, he who treats his devotees very affectionately.
Oh, nice.
Mhm.
Hare Krishna Jivan Mukta Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Jiva Mukta Prabhu.
You. Welcome. Happy you could join us.
Hare Krishna. Nice to be here.
Jai
Hare
Prabhu.
Krishna.
Bye. Dandavats, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Dandavats.
So yeah, we're reading 21 and 22 from chapter 1 tonight, Jivan Mukta. And just on the point that in the previous verse, Arjuna picked up his bow and he was ready to fight. Both armies are waiting, and Krishna had previously vowed to kill anyone who even suggested that he put down his bow. So now in these two texts, Arjuna suddenly says, "Oh, infallible one, please draw my chariot between the two armies so that I may see those present here who desire to fight and with whom I must contend in this great trial of arms." Arjuna's request hints that he is already indecisive about taking part in the battle. I'm trying to understand how is he showing that he's indecisive. Does anyone get that?
Because he's wanting to go between the armies and observe, once more in sort of fearfulness the cousins that he's going to have to slay.
He wants to check out the situation. Jai Bodhi Trini made it again.
Hare Krishna.
Sorry, we're late.
Jai Jai.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you for coming, dear God sister. Jalangi, are you able to read Jalangi at 1 o'clock in the morning there in Berlin? Or is it do you prefer just to listen to everyone? What's your choice?
I can read. I have the book.
Oh, you are able to read, you're saying?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Oh,
All right. So let's get back to the book then. Let's see. Just have to switch screens here. And Prabhupada begins, actually it was Pradyumna that begins with Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. And your Hari Prabhu is here too. Yay.
Hello.
Oh, when the saints come marching in. Oh, when the saints come marching in. Okay.
Goodness.
Okay, here we are. Okay, you've got the book, but we're reading actually from the class, Jalangi. So whenever we need to read from the book, we'll call on you. But can you see the screen right now, Jalangi? Are you able to read this? Translation and Prabhupada?
Yes, I can read.
Okay. Why don't you read a paragraph? The translation in the first paragraph. Arjuna said.
Arjuna said, "Oh, infallible one, please throw my chariot between the two armies so that I may see who is present here, who is desirous of fighting, and with whom I must contend in this great battle attempt." Prabhupada. Senayor Ubayor Madhye Radham Stabhaya Mechuta. Before this, Krishna was addressed as Hrishikesha. Hrishikesha, we have explained. Now Krishna is addressed here Achyuta. Achyuta means fallen, and Achyuta means not fallen. Just like we are fallen conditioned souls. In this material world, we have come with an enjoying spirit. Therefore, we are fallen. If one keeps his position rightly, he does not fall. Otherwise, he is degraded. That is fallen condition.
Jiva Mukta Prabhu, could you continue, please?
So all the living entities within this material world, beginning from Brahma down to the small insignificant ant, they are all fallen conditioned souls. Why they are fallen? Krishna Bulia Jiva Bhoga Vanchakare Pashate Maya Tare Japatiya Tare. Prema Vivarta 6.2. Fallen means when the living entities are under the clutches of this material energy. That is called fallen. Just like a man when he's under police custody, it is to be understood that he is a criminal. He is fallen. He has fallen down from good citizenship. Similarly, we are all parts and parcels of Krishna. Amaivam Sho Jiva Bhuta. Bhagavad Gita 15:7. So as part and parcel, our position is to live with Krishna. Just like this is my finger, part and parcel of my body. This finger must remain attached to this body. When this finger is cut off and fallen, although it is a finger, it is no longer as important as it was formerly when it was attached with this body. So anyone who is not attached with the service of the Supreme Lord, he is fallen. This is the conclusion.
Your Hari and the Bodhi Trini.
Haribol.
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 Oh, the Sanghi's here too. Great.
Haribol.
Haribol.
That's about sister. Hare Krishna. Your Hari, you or Bodhi Trini?
Yes, yes.
But Krishna is not fallen. If Krishna, because he comes to reclaim us, yada yada hi dharmasya ganir bhavati bharata abhyutanam adharmasya tadat manam shriya jami aham. Bhagavad Gita 4:7. Krishna says that I appear when there is discrepancies in the, I mean to say, occupational duties of the living entities. Dharmasya glanir bhavati. We don't translate dharma as religion. Religion in the English dictionary, it is a kind of faith. Faith can be changed, but dharma is a word which cannot be changed. If it is changed, it is to be understood artificial, just like the water. Water is liquid, everyone knows. But sometimes water becomes hard, very hard, ice. So that is not the natural position of water. Artificially, on account of excessive cold or by artificial means, the water becomes solid. But the real position of water is liquidity.
That reminds me of one Prabhupada pastime where he was walking and he had his cane and he kept breaking the ice. And I don't know what devotee was with him, but he asked Prabhupada what he was doing, why he was popping the bubbles of ice. And Prabhupada said, this is an example of Maya. When the water is in a frozen state, it's not in its constitutional position.
Right.
You know, how do you have a comment on
So
that?
yeah,
Prabhu?
in Jaiva Dharma is explained too.
Uh-huh.
That example comes from Jaiva Dharma about explaining the position of the jiva. Can you hear us? I don't know if
Yes,
it might be.
loud and clear.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you both appear very nice on camera. And you have very first class tilak as well.
So yeah, in our misidentification with the body is entering the ice stage of the soul in a way.
The ice age.
As compared to the ice age. It's a long lasting one. Yeah, that's is referred to. That it's not the natural position.
Okay.
And so it's an acquired nature.
Uh-huh.
This habit of the body. That's what I explained in Jaiva Dharma.
What you were saying though is Prabhupada was breaking all the ice bubbles and
Mhm.
the devotee asked him why. And he said this was an example of
Maya,
Maya.
that the water is not in its constitutional position. It's become hard ice.
Yeah.
He gave another example too, in a harbor where a big steamship was being pulled by a little tugboat. And Prabhupada asked the devotee, why is that little tugboat able to do that? Then he explained it's because the big ship had its engine shut off. So he was comparing that to how we get pulled around by little Maya, even though we're
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
That's a good example. But I was thinking Srila Prabhupada was probably having fun breaking the ice with his cane.
all right.
He liked to joke and play.
Playful.
Yes.
Okay, Nirhari, I think it's your turn to read. Yes?
okay. Excuse me. It goes, so when we are
Yeah.
detached,
You ended with water is liquidity, right?
liquidity,
Bodhi
yeah.
Trini?
Yes,
Every
I did.
opposition of water is liquidity.
Yeah.
So when we are detached from the service of the Lord, this is also unnatural. Natural position is that we must be engaged in the service of the Lord. That is our natural position. Therefore, the Vaishnava Kavi says that Krishna Bauliya Jiva Bhogavan Chakare. When a living entity forgets Krishna's position, Krishna says, Bhoktaram Yagya Tapasan Sarvaloka Maheshwaram, Bhagavad Gita 5:29. I am the proprietor, I am the enjoyer, unquote. This is Krishna's position. He never falls down that position. Krishna is enjoyer. He keeps always that position. He never falls down. He never comes to the position of being enjoyed. Continue on the next paragraph, or
It's really up to everyone.
we don't want. Okay, that's fine.
Rasangi, are you able to read?
Actually, I'm driving.
Oh,
I
Okay.
won't be able to read. I'm listening.
Thank you for joining us.
I'm happy to be here.
driving.
Happy. Yeah. I'm
Driving.
going for a walk. I usually take a 2-mile walk in the afternoon. So I'm taking you with me today.
Oh, thank you. We feel honored.
Oh.
Okay. Krishna never comes to the position of being enjoyed. Okay. So that is not possible. If you want to bring Krishna on the position of being enjoyed, then you are defeated. Being enjoyed means keeping Krishna in front. I want to get some profit of sense gratification. That is our unnatural position. Krishna will never agree. Krishna will never agree. Krishna cannot be enjoyed. He is always enjoyer. He is always the proprietor. So Krishna Buliya Jiv means when we forget this position of Krishna, that he is the supreme enjoyer. He is the supreme proprietor. That is called forgetfulness. As soon as I think that I am the enjoyer, I am the proprietor, this is my fallen stage. Krishna Buliya Jiva Bhoga Vanchakare. When we then japati adhare, Maya immediately, Maya captures. Jivan Mukta Prabhu, that I think a previous reading, he was making that point. Jivan Mukta, just to reiterate your point, weren't you saying something to the effect that we shouldn't be trying to enjoy Krishna consciousness?
Yes, well, everything is done for the pleasure of Krishna. Whatever, when we go on Harinam, it's not to please the audience, it's to please Krishna. Ultimately, because Krishna is ultimately in everyone's heart. So if Krishna is satisfied, everyone will be satisfied. But it's not like we are interested in pleasing anyone other than Krishna. And Krishna is the whole. Krishna is the root. It's watering the root.
Sometimes we say a sign of Krishna being pleased is that the Vaishnavas are pleased. Of course, we want Srila Prabhupada to be pleased.
The Vaishnavas are pleased when Krishna is pleased.
Pure Vaishnavas have no ulterior motive, but so they're via transparent via media, Prabhupada used to say. I have a little story from actually one of Prabhupada's God brothers, Bhakti Pramod Purni Goswami Maharaj.
Mhm.
And he had a reading group in Vrindavan during Kartik, and they were reading pastimes of the Lord as a little child, and everybody was, the audience was getting bigger and bigger, and everybody was pretty much enjoying it, and that was the mood. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati and Thakur put a mix to it. And so Puri Maharaj had explained that he understood then that even that is not right, to try to enjoy, oh, these are such nice pastimes and they're to be enjoyed. And naturally they will happen because, we have a great master, so he lives in a great place and we're going to get some benefits, but it's not our goal, isn't it? I mean, naturally. So that was the story that Bhaktisiddhanta stopped even that. And some people went, well, we're not reading, rasa, high ras or madriga ras, which naturally people try to enjoy and they get confused and fall down. But even from that, try to enjoy those pastimes. So it's kind of a fine line, because rashik means we relish hearing these pastimes. There's no question about it.
But isn't there a difference between relish
like
and trying to enjoy Krishna?
Yeah, there is, I think, a difference there that like Jiva Muktandi were saying.
It's just like someone who's leading. I mean, I think we've all experienced, some kirtan leaders who, are leading kirtan really for, kind of there's some selfishness there. And so whether it's kirtan, whether it's giving class, whether it's cooking, like all these things, I mean, we're all on the path, so we have to root this enjoying spirit out. But the objective is that when we perform a kirtan, when we chant, we're chanting for Krishna's pleasure. We're not chanting to attract anyone or to show how we got a good voice, or we're chanting to please the Supreme Personality of God.
When we need a style, Ragani, I think it's called Ragani, Ragan. The melody and rhythm, when it becomes, let's say we do any kirtan bhajan, even about, let's say, Radhe Jai Jai Madhava Daite, that sometimes the devotees could, this was told, Narayana Maharaj was saying that you could have the mood of, I want to do, this got to be a perfect performance of, melody and rhythm. Everything has to be correct. But he said, be careful not to, you get lost in melody and rhythm and you missed out the main thing, which is, what is the song saying? You trying to convey the sentiments very high. There's songs by Rupa Goswami, how can we do better? And so what is the purpose of that chanting? Sometimes it might not be as melodious, but the sentiment is right. So the kirtaniya is in a better position than somebody who will be perfect at performing.
I think
one time we were waiting for Srila Prabhupada in Vrindavan. It was right after the festival, and he came back to Vrindavan, and there was hardly anybody at the temple. Everybody ran to the door, to the entrance, and I think it was the temple president, or somebody asked me to do kirtan. I felt pretty shy, but sure, okay. So I'm doing kirtan, and all of a sudden this devotee rushes to me and grabs my mridanga. I said, no. He said, we had to just move away. There is this kirtaniya. He's very famous, and
he's the best in the
he's
world.
The best in the world, and he's got the the style, so just move away. and grabbed the mridanga. I'm like, okay, Prabhu, in those days, you just, whoever can do it better, all glories, it's just, that's the thing to do, I thought. So he proceeded to sing, this latest style, hanging on the notes in a very Bengali melodious deal. And
Ramo, wasn't it?
yeah, maybe not, but,
maybe
very imitating style of the Bengali at that time, whatever was current. And Prabhupada, I really blasted the devotee later on about, he did not like that.
Wow.
That style, but I thought it was because he had been a very famous person, and not very famous, but he had been a rock star, or maybe semi-known.
I
don't want to name
John Lennon.
I don't want to name names.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
He who remains anonymous.
And so, anyhow, I thought it was interesting. It made me clear. It really clarified to me. And then I know other people that when Prabhupada was entering, samadhi, displaying this lila of sickness and like that, they were not probably the best skiers. They were not even known, but they got a chance to sing for Prabhupada. And out of Prabhupada, he can hardly move, but he would say, "Oh, who is this?"
Bharat Raj, right?
Yeah,
And I think Narayan Maharaj sang for him.
He did. So Krishna, Narayan Maharaj at one point he choked. No, what's the other way around?
This is after he left.
When Bodhi Trini was there. So
After he left, we were told to go into the temple room with his form, and so we came in, and the first thing was Krishna Das Babaji, his godbrother, started to sing Narottam Das Thakur's song, Jaya Nela Prima Donna, but he couldn't sing, he was choked up. So Srila Narayan Maharaj sang, and then he also sang the Guru Puja, Sri Guru Chara.
And he was instrumental. The devotees didn't know what to do. Everybody was pretty shocked.
Well, he was told by Prabhupada to do the samadhi, so he took over. Did
were you in Vrindavan at the time then?
Yes.
Bodhi Trini was. Actually, Rupanuga called, Prabhupada asked Rupanuga to call Hanuman. We were all, my sister and I and her little family, they were in Montreal at that time. And Rupanuga said, Hanuman, you must come, please tell the others, of course, it's immediate family, my sister and I. But he said, make sure that all the rest of the devotees come. Prabhupada's wishes are that forever to come.
Of course, we would have to take turns. You can't just leave the deities behind and everyone jump on a plane.
Well, maybe a pujari or something like that. But, the RGBC was, actually probably most of the GBCs, they all wanted devotees to stay and distribute
Right.
books.
That's what I was told. I wanted to go.
Yeah, but it wasn't Prabhupada's wishes. So we have to always be very attentive to really what is the desire.
He wanted,
and it's not a dead thing; it's a dynamic thing. Their personalities, so they have their wishes. They have and who else? But it's like worshiping Vigraha. We have a great chance by having the spiritual master, pure devotee, because he is the representative. He's the outer manifestation of super soul. So that we have to be attentive.
Bodhi Trini, what were you saying?
He wanted everyone to come with no consideration of what services would be done, that his books would be. He just wanted everyone to come.
Oh, don't remind us, please. It's so painful. Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
But I was there, and I could have been a million miles away. I just heard from Pita memories that Srila Prabhupada made an edict that no women could come in. Of course, some women would come in, but like his sister, or maybe somebody would come from another place from long away and he'd see them. But I didn't even know that women weren't allowed to go in. And I never heard about that we were allowed to look through the window. The window drapes were drawn anyway. But one time I climbed over the wall of the garden and I went and sat by the window and I heard him reading the last Bhagavatam
Verses.
Yeah. And the whole time I had no idea that we were allowed to sit there. So the whole time I was like ready to be pounced on and in fear. Yeah. But I had no idea. I'd stand outside the door and I'd talk to the people coming in and out and they would tell me what was going on. But people in other temples in Canada and US, Africa, Europe, whatever, they knew the details because every day a report was sent out by Tamal Krishna Goswami, but no report was given to the residents of Krishna Balaram Mandir who weren't allowed to come in the room. So it's like, you know, it's like I'd hear different things and maybe they didn't stress that Prabhupada wanted everyone to come because Kirtananda came and I was standing outside and Kirtananda went in to see him and then he came out and he told us how Prabhupada had, like he'd been on his knee, one knee at Prabhupada and Prabhupada just was rubbing his head and patting his head and said, "Don't worry, I'm going to stay 10 more years."
Wow.
So probably the urgency that everyone should come was sent out. Oh no, he's going to stay 10 more years. So
I see.
they didn't, but I don't know because I was
Shikarani, we never heard from you. Welcome. Thank you for coming.
Jai.
So, all right, please continue, Shikarani. Therefore, a conditioned soul, I think that's where.
Therefore,
a conditioned soul fallen.
Fallen conditioned soul is struggling for existence. He is trying to be enjoyer. He is trying to be proprietor. That is his artificial way of life. Just like if a woman wants to become a man, that is her artificial position. She may dress herself as a man, just like in the Western countries, sometimes we see woman is artificially dressing like man, with hat, coat, man riding on horse. That is artificial. So similarly, our position here in this material world is artificial. We are trying to imitate a man. Actually, the living entities are described in the Bhagavad Gita Prakriti. Prakriti means woman and Purusha means man. So, the living entities are never described as Purusha. Purusha is Krishna. Purusha Shashwata. When Arjuna said, Param Brahma Param Dhamma Pavitram Paramam Bhavan, Purusham Shashwatam Adyam. Purusham Shashwatam. Krishna is always Purusha. God cannot be female. God is always male, Purusha. And we are Prakriti. That is described in the Bhagavad Gita. Aparayam itastu vidhi me prakritim para. After describing...
Jivan Mukta Prabhu, excuse me, Shikarani, we're just reading 1 or 2 paragraphs each. I was thinking of you, Jivan Mukta Prabhu, because you've written a book on Vedic culture and the roles of men and women. And when Prabhupada was saying here that a woman wants to become a man, and that is her artificial position, I was just wondering if you thought that this, if this type of mentality is what you think fuels feminism.
Of course, that's what that underlies it. Of course, that's what it is. I mean, that's what's underlying this push in ISKCON, like a demand almost by women to be called Prabhu. It's absurd beyond comprehension that they would be called Prabhu, which is a male. Like, how could anyone, even between me and you, do I ever ask you, call me Prabhu?
No.
It's so absurd.
But the argument they will use is that Prabhupada in the very early days said Malati, Prabhu, Kaushalya.
Days, so many call each other Prabhu.
What, Nandapatni? Say again.
We all call each
I
other.
remember in the early days, we all called
Yes.
each other Prabhu.
Yes. In the early days, so many
That's
things.
right.
Srila Prabhupada demanded it though, and it was controversy. It was a controversy with the Gaudiya Math, but Srila Prabhupada wanted everyone to be called Prabhu. He made a statement.
And when he got
And it's just like he used Prabhupada, and there was a big controversy in Gaudiya Math. So yes, Prabhu is masculine. I don't know if there's a feminine terminology.
there is.
Prabvi. It's called Prabvi. Is a
Prabhu.
feminine version.
Yeah.
So he didn't introduce that. He introduced something new. And he wanted us to call each other Prabhu, and he made a big point of it.
And you should hear on Nam Ras Pod, the interview with Govinda Dasi.
Yeah, the late early morning program.
Yes,
Right.
thank you, Gora. We have her here and we talk, we're good friends.
Well, she's in
And
Texas.
she's now in Texas, but
Yeah.
all these things were discussed before. It was like, she was actually with Jamuna, I think, was either BBC for a minute there, but
Oh yeah, she was the GBC.
she was. So there, always that came up, even during Parapa's times. Prabhupada one time he said, what's the difference? She comes to Mangalarti, you go to Mangalarti. We worship the spiritual master, the deity, the same. We go out on Sankirtan and distribute books. So what is the difference there?
But if there's no difference, why weren't the women allowed to come into Prabhupada's room when he was about to depart?
Well, we don't know if that was directed by somebody around him.
We
which
don't
was
know
the
if
case
Srila
many
Prabhupada
times.
said that. I never heard it. This is the
I
first time I ever heard
Peter
it.
brought that up, but
That's
But
the other point is people say that up until Srila Prabhupada came to the West, women were never given Gayatri mantra, which is untrue. But the other thing is people like, we used to say Bhaja Sri Krishna Chaitanya. Then
Right.
a group came up that was Sahaji or something, and they said Bhaja. So
They were saying
Prabhupada-
Bhaja Hare Krishna. Even some of our own
Right.
devotees, I think I heard
Right.
Dina.
So Prabhupada said,
Bhaja
stop
Hare
saying
Krishna.
it. He said, stop saying Bhaja. But it doesn't mean it's forever. So he may have said in the beginning, call everyone Prabhu because I'm Prabhupada. And actually Govinda Dasi is the one that came up with, he gave three
Right.
choices and she chose Prabhupada. And
Uh-huh.
everyone except Bhakti Vaibhav Puri of his godbrothers were so upset and angry that Srila Prabhupada was being called Prabhupada.
Krishna
But
Chandra
he-
Prabhu, did you know that? Krishna Chandra?
I wasn't not on that specific point. I just knew that I was informed that he was the least envious of all the God
Oh,
brothers.
he
wasn't envious at all.
He
I mean,
had
I
no-
didn't mean to say he was at all. I apologize. I apologize.
They're all envious.
Yeah, but anyway, the thing, Prabhupada made a point that he wanted everyone to be Prabhu because that means they're sitting at the feet of Prabhupada, they're sitting at.
All the
Well,
Prabhu,
let me
But
just
now, I didn't finish my point. What I'm saying is now it's probably ineffective, just like now it's not a big push not to say Bhaja because there's no group misusing it. And now there's, Srila Prabhupada's not even here, so I'm just speculating, but maybe that's not. He is and he's not, but that wasn't one of the 4 regulative principles. But now in the other groups, they're calling everyone Didi, which means your older sister.
Right.
So a older man will call a woman 20 years his junior Didi.
It's weird.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah.
And
In
then
one case, Prabhupada was saying now they're calling women Bahinji. But he said, I do not approve of this. The Bahinji, I don't know what Bahinji means exactly.
I don't know,
Is that
it's the first time
sister?
I've never heard that.
Bahanji means small sister. Didi means big sister.
Oh,
Like
Oh.
older and younger.
And then there was a problem with
What was it with
Mataji.
Shamarani Prabhupada? She said something about women.
Oh, yeah, Shamarani said, Prabhupada, you say women have smaller brains than men. He goes, oh, you think you are a woman?
Yeah.
You know.
So
But-
that was the shelter, that was the home that he built, the place where all these corporeal distinctions were used or put, to use against women.
Oh,
That when fifth canto came out, it was scandalous the way that I was in the middle of it. And one senior god brother decided that all the women of the temples should be closed. Everybody should go into buses to preach.
And all the women
It was
should
a great,
go to,
it was a dream
Australia?
of the administrators. 'cause
All the
they-
women
they
should
had
be
demand-
sent to Australia.
Yeah, women and children to Australia. And so when we got to, in this 75, fifth canto is out, and I'm there in the Gargamuni's party, and it's really the old boys club. I mean, sannyasis were, most of them pretty heavy. They were really untasteful name callings and during breakfast time towards
They were spitting on us women.
yeah, I was in the
so wait a minute, what's the fifth canto got to do with this?
the fifth canto talks about materialistic women and materialistic
Okay, the
men.
women being like jackals and witches.
Tigers
Being
and
like
witches.
tigers during the day or
Yeah.
night, witches at night.
So in the
But
height-
then it tells about materialistic men. They're hunters. They
Uh.
attract women to use them for sexual pleasure. So it's the description that was extrapolated, and then all women are like that. And so yeah, it's kind of strange what's going on, and people are also, well, women cannot be gurus. No, Prabhupada never mentions that. I mean, we have in our history from Janava, the wife of Lord Nityananda, who became the head of the Sampradaya,
But she's
to Gangamata Goswamini.
I think I may have totally derailed this Bhagavad Gita class.
Yeah. Bhagavad Gita ki jai.
Prabhupada's point was that we're all women. Just now, what we were reading. Prabhupada's point was that we're all women.
Some of the arguments that are presented, with all due respect, are absolutely like, for example, this idea that don't see yourself as your body. It's so misused, because if that was the case, then Lord Chaitanya would not be infatuated with his disciples properly following the sannyas dharma, or himself, or Prabhupada because I saw that last thing by Pita Prabhu, that Prabhupada on his last days did not have any of his female disciples in his room. Like, these are not just like haphazard things. If Prabhupada was so contrary to us seeing ourselves as our bodies, why did he not show that in the day-to-day organization of ISKCON? For example, on lecture after lecture, there was one lecture where he gave Brahmin initiation to the husband, and he says, I don't give it to the woman. The woman doesn't get Brahmin. She's not a Brahmin. She's the wife of the Brahmin. You are a woman, so you're the wife, so you're better half. So you don't need Brahmin initiation. Prabhupada said these things not because he didn't understand that we are spirit souls and we're not these bodies, but because we do have these bodies. And because Varnashram Dharma means we have to follow our Dharma, our occupational duties based on our psychophysical condition. Now, in the beginning, so many things happened in the beginning. Prabhupada introducing a new thing. Yes, he introduced a new thing as far as bringing people to Krishna consciousness, but Prabhupada wanted the real thing. Prabhupada didn't introduce anything new. Prabhupada introduced the actual real thing. Prabhupada always spoke against concoction. Prabhupada did not concoct anything. Not
Yeah, and we
one
also
thing.
spoke about time, place, and circumstance.
Yes, we have to bring everybody in.
So then
If you have-
to that devotee that decided to kick all the women out of the movement, he just said, "Oh, you want to get rid of my disciples?"
I totally agree.
And so, yes, I mean, we do have, you know, when we had to go to the bathroom, we just go to a separate, you know, men's bathroom, or women. Now is, you know,
Not
a
anymore.
controversial point, you know, big one. But yeah, I mean, Prabhupada told us to come to the point of realization. We cannot stay on the body only. I mean, there's practical things. There's no more practical person that Prabhupada ever seen. When he came to conduct business and like that, I mean, it was genial. His behavior was amazing. But he also, I just read so many times, he had to come out to that platform. We're treating each other as spirit soul, you know, and we're learning from each other.
But Prabhu, we treat dogs as spirit. We should be treating all living entities as spiritual.
But that depends. No, that depends on the level of realization.
Okay, but I don't want a dog. But I don't want a dog in my house. Thank you very much.
That's right. We don't want a dog at the temple. We don't allow dogs at the temple.
Right.
Well, we're not
And the dog should
disagreeing
know
with
his
you. We're
place.
just saying that if that the rules and regulations are there to facilitate us coming to the level, but some of them are just like when Prabhupada kept saying he wanted Varnashram Dharma, and then Jamandagni came to Prabhupada with the practical idea of how to institute it, and Srila Prabhupada crushed everything he said. So then another example, you just—
Excuse me for interrupting you. Do you remember roughly what he was bringing to Prabhupada and what was that the Prabhupada crushed? Do you know any details?
I don't know.
Okay.
But the other thing is, one time, I think his name was Varaha Swami. He was coming from Mayapur at the GBC meetings, and we were so excited. We said it must have been wonderful, the GBC meetings with everyone quoting Prabhupada's books, and you know, it must have been amazing. And he goes, everyone was quoting Srila Prabhupada's books and writings and classes with contradictory points to defeat the other ones and to prove what they desired to do was the thing to do. And everyone was arguing and based on false ego, all using Srila Prabhupada's instructions. So, you know, it's a fine line, like.
But this is what always has been going on. That's why there's Shastra. For example, there's Brahmins who debate different situations, and you go to Shastra.
Right.
So
well, they were all doing Sadhu, Guru, Shastra.
Yeah.
And they were all disagreeing. No,
But
they were.
What you're saying, Bodhi Trini, I think it sounds to me like you're saying it depends on the intention behind it.
Yeah, and level of realization is like, there was a very famous, we had a class of Bhajan Rahasya, Bhaktivinoda Thakur's book, very, very important book. It's mostly, I mean, Rupa Goswami's instructions on bhajan, meaning the worship, how to do worship, how to perform devotional service. And there was a great saint, very famous saint, and he considered everybody his Prabhu. Like you said, I mean, he will be seen in the street paying obeisances to donkeys, to dogs. So if we try to do that, I mean, it will be totally artificial, because we're not in that level of realization. And so, yeah, I mean, I can understand, but that you can't call her, you know, you might, in that case, you're saying, well, you know, I'm not going to call you Brahmin because you're a woman. And Prabhupada, in that case, he didn't want to give Brahmin initiation, but he did. He gave Brahmin initiation. He gave Gayatri.
So did Bhaktisiddhanta.
Mantra, and Bhaktisiddhanta did too. the mother of very famous devotee in Gaudiya Math, Vaman Maharaj, and her brother, they were disciples. Srila Prabhupada's sister was a disciple. She was a temple commander. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
And she was very involved with Srila Prabhupada.
Bodhi Trini?
yes, she was the temple commander at Bhakti Saranga's temple. She lived in the ashram. Of course, she was a widow. And when I was her personal servant for about a month when she was leaving her body. She called me Bodhi Trini.
Were you named after her?
Yes, by Prabhupada.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was her personal servant for a month, and I met so many brahmacharis coming to pay their respects to her because she had trained them up in the ashram.
Wow. Wow.
And-
They were paying their obeisances to her.
Yeah, they were coming to see her and treating her like guru.
Like guru. Uh-huh.
Mhm.
Well, she
And
was a
then-
Shiksha guru to them, probably.
Yes, and also very friendly, and she was very friendly and affectionate. And so when she was first initiated by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he asked her shortly afterwards, why aren't you accepting Gayatri mantras, Diksha from me? And she said, oh, my husband, he's not so pure, he smokes beedis. And so he said to her, oh, well, you become such a good devotee that he becomes pure and gives up that habit, then I will give you Diksha. So shortly after that, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur entered Samadhi. 3 days later, her husband passed away. And so if it had been the opposite, she would have received Diksha from him. But after that, she and Srila Prabhupada were very much involved in Bhakti Saranga's Math in Calcutta. And so they would go to all the programs. At one point, I think Srila Prabhupada might have even been the president of the temple there, although he was a householder. And both of them had a friend who had become a widow like shortly after she married. So she was about the same age as Prabhupada's sister. And Prabhupada's sister was 33 when she was widowed. So Prabhavati was probably around the same age. And so they took her with them every time they went to the temple. And she took initiation from Bhakti Saranga. And she went to live in Vrindavan. And she lived in the ashram the rest of her life, which was 107 years at Emily Tull on the banks of the Jamuna. And
You're not talking about Bodhi Trini.
Prabhavati. No, Prabhavati.
Who
Their
was
friend.
Prabhavati?
A friend of Srila Prabhupada's and his sister.
Oh, I see.
And they
disciple
took
of
her
Bhakti
on-
Siddhanta.
Yeah, she became a disciple of Bhakti Saranga
I see.
under their direction.
Yeah, and Prabhupada, as soon as he took sannyas, they were good friends, so they would talk. But as soon as Prabhupada took sannyas, he said, I'll no longer be able
Oh yeah,
to
when Prabhupada lived in Vrindavan,
relate to you.
after he left householder life, Prabhavati would come see him every day and spend time with him. But as soon as he took sannyas, he told her not to come anymore. So Jivan Mukta is right about
Her
following
sons.
Vaishnava etiquette. There's even a verse in the Chaitanya Charitamrita about how important it is.
Let me
Jivanmukta,
read
you have something to say? Go ahead.
No. In fact, I just read this just before I signed in today. Let me read to you. This is from Chaitanya Charitamrita. It's Lord Chaitanya is instructing Gopinath Pattanayaka because, you know the story, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
he's on the Changa.
Yeah. So Lord Chaitanya, like basically said to him at the end of this whole pastime, he says, just obey one order from me. He's telling Gopinath. Do not spend any of the king's revenue. In other words, the money that belongs to the king should go to the king. Do your duty as a collector and don't take any money. And then purport Prabhupada says, one who maintains his position as an eternal servant of Krishna cannot deviate from the path of morality religion, and ethics. At the present moment, people all over the world, especially in India, have forgotten their relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his eternal servants. Therefore, the principles of morality, religion, and ethics have almost disappeared. This situation is most unprofitable for human society. Now, that book that I compiled is basically, 600 quotes of Srila Prabhupada, and I just put it together as, a continuous like stream. And what we have to look at is Krishna consciousness means the perfect expression of morality, ethics, and religion. That means eventually, Prabhupada says this time and time and time again, that he wants to see that this Krishna consciousness movement, which he calls a cultural movement, it's not a religion, it's a cultural movement, that it fully represents the Vedic principles and expresses the Vedic culture. That's what he was aiming for. Now, he came to the West, for goodness sakes, we are in it's a cesspool. You can't get any more degraded. Maybe some African tribes, where they're cannibals, but I think we're not that far off. He came to the West, so he obviously has to make some consideration of that. But he's pulling us out of that cesspool so that ultimately these disciples of his could express and could, embody that morality, the ethics of what ethics? Of Krishna, or Chaitanya, of Vaikuntha, of Goloka. In Goloka, you don't have the women riding horses, you don't have these things like Prabhupada's making fun of here. You don't have that. What are
Rohini escaped Mathura on a horseback.
That's Gokula.
That's Gokula.
He's
Yeah,
saying
but she rode a horse.
Yeah, she rode a horse.
It's too much attachment, too much detachment from rules and regulations. That's an impediment to bhakti yoga.
Yes, that's true. That's true. But the rules and regulations, and we see Lord Chaitanya very adamant, not only following the rules or regulations of spiritual life, but he insisted that, and he said that if he ever does that again, if Gopinath Patanaika ever gets caught in a situation like that again on the Changa, doesn't want to be bothered. Don't come to me. He was about to leave Jagannath Puri because he wanted nothing to do with this.
Anyhow, because when they came to inform him the first time, he said that, so you want me to go beg from the king?
Yeah, exactly.
You want me to beg from the king?
Sorry, I want to interject for a second, just for everyone else's benefit. Can Jivamukta, can you just give a quick synopsis of the pastime of Gopinath Patanayak? Was he being accused of stealing some money from the king? Is that why he was?
Yeah. What happened was, they're tax collectors, and he there was $200,000 or 200,000 khandas, I think. Yeah, and that weren't accounted for. So he proposed to the king, who was Maharaj Prataparudra, right? He proposed to the king that, look, take my horses, give me a fair price on the horses. Anything else that I owe you, I'll pay you over a period of time. But what happened is Gopinath Patanaika made fun of the prince, because the prince had this habit of kind of twitching his neck and looking up at the sky, and Gopinath Patanaika said something like, well, my horses don't twitch their necks and look up at the sky. They're good horses.
Well, that's because
the prince tried to cheat him.
Yes, because he didn't want to give him enough money for the horses. Exactly. Yeah. So anyway, what happened is he made that reference to the prince. The prince got all upset, and through the prince's involvement, then he suggested we're going to put him on the Changa, and finish him.
Changa is it's like being impaled on a big sharp stick.
Exactly. Yeah.
The bunch of swords are laid below this platform is called Changa.
And then you're thrown off of it onto the sword.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
anyway, so many devotees were appealing to Lord Chaitanya, please, you got to save him. This is like Bhavananda Roy's family, his whole family, Ramananda Roy, Bhavananda Roy, like Vaninath Roy, like their whole family are such intimate, dear devotees of yours. You have to help them out. Lord Chaitanya
Were
was,
put in jail, all the
them.
family was put
yeah,
in
he took
jail.
the whole family in jail.
Vaninath was the youngest brother that was given by Bhavananda Roy, the father, to Lord Chaitanya.
Yeah.
To do any service that was needed.
And Lord Chaitanya actually never did. He never did approach the king. What happened was another, servant of the king then went up to the king, I guess inspired obviously by Lord Chaitanya.
Well, his minister inquired
and said, like, why are you doing this? Like, if you kill him, you're definitely going to lose all your money. So just like give him a chance, take his horses, give him a chance to pay it off. And Maharaj Prataparudra didn't realize that this was going on.
Yeah.
When he realized it was going on, he gave the order, no, tell the prince, stop this. Like, don't do this to Gopinath. And anyway, it goes on. But the point is, Lord Chaitanya wanted his devotees to strictly follow even the material rules and regulations.
But I'd like to make one point. I agree that Lord Chaitanya was very strict. He said that his life was saved because he was running towards a woman singing Gita Govinda.
Right.
And he said if he had gone to her, it would have killed him, destroyed everything, his life. So I agree. But the fact that it's a cultural movement and that we have to be moral and ethical, et cetera, these are all byproducts
of realization.
That's not what Lord Chaitanya came to give. He came to give Krishna prema. And so anything that is favorable is used for that. So the rules and regulations, Srila Prabhupada called them the 4 regulative principles of freedom, because they free us from being entangled and trapped by Maya. So if Srila Prabhupada said to call his disciples who are in female bodies Prabhu, then it's not ludicrous to call his disciples in female bodies Prabhu. It was like a title, just like Srila Prabhupada was given the title Bhakti Vedanta before he even took sannyas. It's an individual situation, and I don't think it should be a point of controversy or a rule that no, you can't call a woman Prabhu.
When I started the Prabhupada Disciples, my godbrothers and godsisters group 11 years ago, this was one of my first posts. I took it from Shivaram Swami. I thought, oh, this could make an interesting conversation piece. And the article was entitled, should we call the Vaishnavis mother or Prabhu? And it was the biggest post we ever had. We got 1,500 comments on it. And 2 of them that stand out for me is one god sister, I've never met her before, very nice god sister, Sritama. She said, she said, I would never want to be called Prabhu. What devotee would ever want to be called Prabhu? I thought, well,
right. Yes, male or female. Call master. You call me master.
Or whether being male or female would be a qualification to be a guru or not.
Yeah.
Actually, that's not the qualification. We know about from Nectar of Instruction what it is, but.
And I like Kusha's answer. She said, I don't care what you call me, as long as you don't call me late for prasad.
I love Kusha.
Yeah, she's great. A little levity.
Yeah.
But yeah,
as far as the guru thing,
forgive me. May I say I just feel
Alangi, you've been very, very humble and quiet. Say something, please.
Yes, I really appreciate and I am so grateful for this subject, because just recently in Polish Yatra, this subject came up with so many maybe not so many for now, commentaries. And I am so grateful for every angle of vision, of every point you raised up. I wanted to just to address one most important point. As long as we are on the bodily platform, every one of us, I do not speak about you. For me, you are self-realized, great, pure Vaishnavas, and I bow down to you. So please do not feel offended, any one of you. But it's also quotations from Prabhupada, as you mentioned. As long as we are on the material or mental platform, and we see others as the body, then we must follow Varnashrama, we must follow the social order, just that everything is going smoothly in the society. But for Vaishnavas, or for pure Vaishnavas, every living being is a kind of spiritual master, a kind of someone who is higher, someone who is the soul. And we see this in the example of Prabhupada or Jesus Christ, or no matter what. As I was thinking, as an example, we have the Bible, the Old and the New Testament. We can see the way Jesus Christ, he was treating ladies for speaking about bhakti or love. There is the example with this woman, Samaritanin. I don't know.
Samaritan.
Samaritan, yeah.
Yes, when he gave her water, although everyone was abandoning her, he was treating her just with love, as a spirit soul. So for Vaishnavas, this title, Prabhu, is really the best title we could use to ladies and to gentlemen. I heard Hridayananda Maharaj, he commented that this word Prabhu in Sanskrit is not feminine and not masculine. It's both. You can address with this word both ladies or gentlemen.
All I could say, Mataji, is that in
we could say.
Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Please forgive. I just.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, I apologize.
Please finish.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can I just make a quick footnote, real quick?
Well, she's not finished her point, but
I'm so sorry. Never mind. Forget I said anything.
everyone's very enthusiastic.
Because English is not my language, I'm so afraid that I will.
You're doing very well. We understand you.
Doing great. Carry on.
I will. Please remember what you wanted to say. Just or maybe I will try to remember.
Finish your point, please.
I'm afraid that my mind will drive away from this point. It was just if every man should be called Prabhu and lady should be called Mataji. This logic is like only men are masters. Matajis are just Matajis. Always. Independently, they are very spiritual or not spiritual, whatever. Logically, we could make a kind of joke that Matajis should call all men Putriji, because Prabhupada also said to his disciples and ladies, you should call men your sons. Men are calling you mothers. You can call them sons. So just to show respect love and respect to everyone. We can call someone Prabhu or Mataji. I am not for this or for that. It's also the way we say. In Poland, for example, it was such a problem because everyone was calling ladies, hey, Mata, I want to get rid of you. Just disappear from me. It was so disrespectful. So,
You can do the same. Hey, Prabhu, wash my shoes, clean my shoes, Prabhu.
The words they do get misused and abused.
I want to throw something out there on this. 1977, I went to see Prabhupada in Mayapur, March, February. He was giving classes from the 7th canto. It's my last chance to see Prabhupada, and I got stricken heavily with amoebic dysentery. So I was sent to the Mayapur wall there, and there was a god sister. She was all in white, and she was in charge of the infirmary. And I remember how she addressed me. She said, all right, son, sit down on the cot. Son, now get up. Son, she kept calling me son. I never had a god sister call me that, but immediately went in my mind, wow, she's my mother. She's calling me son. And I immediately, it invoked within me a sense of respect for her because she was referring to me as son. And, I didn't say, hey, Prabhupada said, you're supposed to call me Prabhu. That didn't enter my mind. I mean, if you go to an Indian lady and if you would go to her, excuse me, Prabhu, oh, I am not Prabhu, I am Mataji. You are the Prabhuji. I am the Mataji. And when I put this online one time, one Western woman said, yeah, we got to teach those Indian women that they are supposed to be called Prabhu. They should not be, but yet Prabhupada and Chanakya Pandit say, Matravat Paradarishu. We should see all women as mother. So, sorry if I helped to derail this Bhagavad Gita reading. I'll just shut up. I'll just be quiet from now.
I'm glad it wasn't me today.
That's the point I was going to make, is that if you want to look at what Prabhupada has said in his books, in his lectures, in that verse from Chanakya Pandit is everywhere, is repeated so many times. So obviously it has very significance. It has a lot of significance in ISKCON. Otherwise Prabhupada wouldn't have said it. Now, if women want to call each other Prabhu, fine. But
what particular Chanakya Pandit verse you quoting?
Oh, about how men should be seeing everyone except their wives, should be calling everyone except their wives mother.
Yeah, he also said politicians and women should not be trusted. So then how do you deal with the teachings of Queen Kunti?
We know that politicians
don't we trust her? Don't we trust her? So it's all time and circumstance, and according to a level of realization, and most of all, what is the sadhu saying? Because Shastra, we learned this from Chaitanya Charitamrita. Lord Chaitanya himself said, it's not by taking sannyas, it's not by reading. You can read all the scriptures you want. But Shabda Brahma, really, the sound vibration, the pure sound vibration transmitted from Krishna in purity, only the spiritual master can do that. So yes, while we are developing, we need to follow those rules. Prabhupada always said, follow the four relative principles, and we could not get initiation unless you follow them. That was one of the things we repeated out loud in front of him.
Prabhu, one of the things that I felt really inspired about is after reading the Brihad Bhagavatamrita and the description of Goloka and how the behavior of the residents of Goloka, I realized they're perfectly representing the ethics, the morality, the culture, and the religion of Varnashram Dharma. In fact, Varnashram Dharma is simply the behavior of the Goloka residents coming down.
At the same time.
That's all it is.
No, because the gopis are, if you are considered by Varnashram system, the gopis went against the parents, the grandparents, and they are considered the highest devotees.
Yes, but because that's Goloka. That's
Yeah.
Goloka. But as far as the day-to-day structure and behaviors, it totally represents Varnashram Dharma.
In
Completely.
Goloka,
In fact,
every
we
word is a
dress.
song,
I mean, we
every
Vedic
step is
culture.
a dance.
But it's not the most important. It's just left behind. That's part of Aishwarya. When we enter conception of God in the center, that is the supreme absolute truth, the supreme Lord, creator, and like that. But that's not in the conception of the inhabitants of Braja. Number one for them, he said, yeah, you might say to Uddhava, I said, Nanda Baba, he failed. Uddhava failed terribly. He said, well, you know who you're dealing with is the supreme person. You shouldn't be like, he said, you might say whatever you like, but for me, he's always my son. And I have to then chastise him. I have to act like a father. But the principle, the most important principle there is love of Krishna Prem.
Of course.
And so the rest, the rules will follow that. It's not that we
But
follow the rules and that's, the most important thing. No, it's a means to
the rules that do follow. Like my point is that the rules that follow, the behavior, the ethics, the expressions of the actions that follow are represented in the structure of Varnashram Dharma. In fact, that is why we follow it, so that we get trained. We're being trained to qualify to go back to Godhead. And Vaikuntha, whether it's Vaikuntha or Goloka, Varnashram Dharma trains us.
Yeah, well, the Mayavadis, they follow very strictly all the rules and regulations. Don't they? They do. Shankarites, I mean, the schools of Mayavad, many of them, they follow all these rules and regulations, sannyas and like that. But they fail at the last thing is that they fail.
They have no love for Krishna.
They have no love for Krishna, of course.
There are only two in the Nectar of Devotion.
I love
Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. It boils down to there are only two rules.
Always remember Krishna and never forget him.
Yes.
And then I love this story that this Vyasaki. Yeah, he wrote in this book Vilas, I think it's called.
Radha Damodar
Vilas. And he said he had time. At one point, he went and looked for Dr. Kapoor, who knew Srila Prabhupada before Prabhupada took sannyas. He knew him as Abai Babu, and he went to see him at his pharmacy. This is Vyasaki telling, and Dr. Kapoor asked Prabhupada, "I want you to give me the supreme remedy," or he said, "Give me a Krishna. I want Krishna Prem. Can you give me that?" Prabhupada said,
he said, "I want your tonic." Right?
I want your tonic. I want, what is that? It's all Krishna Prem. He said, well, Prabhupada said, I can't give you Krishna. I don't have Krishna Prem. He said, but I do have the formula. He said, oh, what is that? He said, Trinada pi sunichana taroda pi sahishnana. Not yet. So give respects to all others, not expecting any in return. That'll be one thing. I can call you, like you were saying, I'll call you Prabhu, just, hey, Prabhu, just, hey, give me this, give me that, do this.
Yeah, I wanted to comment. Sorry, I wanted to say that, I think that in the West, we've come to minimize motherhood because the mother is also master in her own realm.
Actually, it's said that in Vedic culture, the mother is next to God and her word is higher than guru.
Yeah.
So there's one story, Bhakti Prangyana Keshava Maharaj was living at the ashram with Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, and his mother was dying and she requested that he come see her, and he hid and he wouldn't leave. And finally, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said to him, why aren't you going to see your mother? I'm instructing you, go, your mother is calling. He goes, if I go to see her, she's going to tell me to take over the family business and all the lands. And because she's my mother, I will have to accept. So therefore, So Bhaktisiddhanta.
So out of the millions and millions of lifetimes that I've been in this universe, by some amazing opportunity, I have now come to the lotus feet of your lotus feet of the pure devotee, which are very, very rare, very, very difficult to attain. So please don't send me away from that. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati raised him and embraced him. He liked that very much.
But
so
this-
what is
yeah.
the Vedic, if you go by Vedic culture, he's been contradictory there. He's going acting against it. So what is the most important thing? You see what I mean, Jivan? I'm not against you, but there's no unit. We have to use our intelligence.
You're saying it's not so black and white. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
It's more important
actually,
is love.
Love
important
preempts everything.
Yeah.
What is the intention? And to follow.
Love
to
is
follow
higher than justice. Love is high.
But let's
Srila Prabhupada himself said, devotees are not moral. I witnessed this. He said, devotees are not moral. Just see, here, Lord Nrsingadev is tearing apart, killing, murdering Prahlad's father.
Yes.
Prahlad, not only he is not objecting, but he is offering a flower garland to the killer. This is not moral.
Oh, but
So, yeah.
no, really. I mean, when you make statements like that, it's like, do you really what do you intend by making that statement? Do you really
I intend that it's very good to follow.
Do you intend me to accept that we're not moral after just reading this purport?
Well, as Prabhupada said
We're
it, we don't say it.
transcendental to morality.
But that doesn't mean that we don't fully express that moral. It's automatically in the devotee automatically.
But we don't
expresses those
have to
qualities.
make a point of being moral.
Sometimes we do. Sometimes
Yeah, well, we
If-
follow. Yeah, we
no,
follow.
if
If we
you
want to
ever-
represent the
We're-
spiritual
to
To
aspect of it.
represent, you have, just like Jesus Christ said, give to Caesar what is due to Caesar. We follow different things in order to progress in our love of Krishna. But when
Yes.
you get to the one state where you're no longer doing sadhana bhakti, then you're, and so this making a situation for devotees to follow all the rules, and also Vaishnava etiquette is the crown jewel of the devotees, as stated in Chaitanya Charitamrita. So I'm not disagreeing. I'm just saying that it's not an ascending process. We don't do this and follow the rules and then we get love of God. We are sincere and we follow, we're sincere, but the most important thing isn't that we establish varnashram dharma or we follow the rules or we're moral. It's just like when the devotee becomes pure, liberation and bhukti or with folded hands, so is morality and etiquette and
Like the last verse of the Bhagavad Gita, Yatra Yogeshwara
Yeah.
Krishna,
Yeah.
Yatra Partho
Right.
Dinodara, wherever
Wherever it is
Krishna
Krishna,
Arjuna are, there is extraordinary morality, opulence,
yeah.
victory.
Okay,
So
right.
what brought out this whole thing is that Srila Prabhupada's telling us that we should never try to enjoy Krishna. So all these rules, all these cultures, they are to help us not try to enjoy Krishna. Krishna is the supreme enjoyer, but we're part and parcel of Krishna, so we also are enjoyers, and Srila Prabhupada says that. But the point is, we should not try to enjoy Krishna. When I first started chanting,
Wow, Nitya Leela finally came back.
Oh,
Haribol.
All the way from Pakistan. Hare Krishna.
Jai.
Jai.
You're just
Hare
in time for the nectar, Nitya Leela. Please continue. Bhava Trini was saying when Srila Prabhupada. You're
So
trying to pass.
I lost my train. Well,
Oh no.
By the way,
I would love to say something.
Enjoying mood.
No, wait a minute. Bhava Trini, do you have your story?
Okay, so we are little enjoyers, but we have to enjoy everything in relationship to Krishna, for Krishna. So if we call our god sisters Mataji, Prabhu, Didi, little sister, I forget the
By Hindi.
Sanskrit or Hindi for that. But what is it by?
By Hindi.
Yes, it's oh, I know. When I first started I did 96 rounds a day for a while, and I was saying that I was talking to Vrindavan Blossom, and I was saying, well, you know, it's sometimes I hate it. I hate chanting during this, you know, 8 hours of chanting japa. Sometimes I just can't stand chanting, and I'm not enjoying it. And she said, oh, so you want to enjoy Krishna. So it's my mindset was completely wrong. Of course, it's pleasurable to serve Krishna, to be enjoyed by Krishna. But if we're trying to enjoy Krishna, we're on the wrong path. And therefore, we have etiquette, we have culture, we have Varnashram Dharma, and all these things keep us on the path so that we can develop Krishna prema, but it's a descending process.
Krishna Chandra Prabhu, sorry for interrupting you, Bodhi Trini. Krishna Chandra had something he wanted to say a long time ago.
Sure. Okay.
Still remember what it is, Krishna Chandra?
I remember what it is, but it was so long ago, and it was very tangential. Because one second, Jalangi Mataji was talking about the Samaritan woman, and I just wanted to say that what may not be fully realized is that Jesus was telling the Samaritan woman that he was the Messiah. She was the very first person he ever told that to, and she was a woman and a Samaritan, which was considered an outcast by Israelite standards.
Interesting.
Thank you.
That's very nice.
Well, also along that same vein, you know, do you remember when the prostitute, I think it was Mary Magdalene, I can't remember.
Yes.
He washed his feet with her hair, and all the people around were saying, stone her. And then I think Christ said, you know, whoever is without sin, cast ye the first stone.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
The
two there's another Mary. It's not Mary Magdalene.
It's not Mary Magdalene, right?
Yeah. But she and the rules, you know, they thought, well, the rules Jesus is saying to, you know, the money we should always take care of the poor and like that. And when she uses all the money they have collected to buy oils, and she did perfumed oils. She wanted to do abhishek to her Guru Maharaj, Jesus. So she did, even with her tears, and dry his feet there was nothing there. There was with her hair. And the other disciples were all furious. Said, how can you spend the money? This is like even Jesus says we're like to spend on the poor. And he said, the poor will be among you forever. But the spiritual myself, no. So,
I've got a quote here by Prabhupada from the 9th canto. Excuse me for interrupting you in your hurry, Prabhu. Coming back to you, Jiva Mukta Prabhu, about seeing everyone as mother. So in the 9th canto, Prabhupada comments, by staying chaste and faithful to her husband, a woman enriches herself with supernatural power. It is a moral principle that one should not be influenced by lusty desires for another's wife. Matravat paradareshu. An intelligent person must look upon another's wife as being like his mother. This is a moral injunction from Chanakya Shloka number 10. Matravat paradareshu paradravyeshu lostravat atmavat sarva bhuteshu yapashyati sapanditaha. Quote, one who considers another's wife as his mother, another's possessions as a lump of dirt, and treats all of the living beings as he would himself, is considered to be learned. Thus, Ravana was condemned not only by Lord Ramachandra, but even by his own wife, Mandodari, because she was a chaste woman. She knew the power of another chaste woman, especially such a wife as Mother Sita Devi. So I'm not trying to challenge Srila Prabhupada, because who am I to do that? But if on the one hand, if we're going to go with the premise that Srila Prabhupada wanted all brahmacharis and all sannyasis to call all women Prabhu, then it just seems to be a little little conflicting here, that we're supposed to see another's wife as my mother, but when I come to my mother, I'm supposed to call her Prabhu and not Mataji.
When they're talking about in Vedic culture, the mother is the first guru.
Right.
We were just reading about that. Mother is the one that gives really, and the Israelites follow that tradition. It's the mother that gives the first teachings.
Yeah, because there's that
and
quote.
Pita, yeah, Pita,
Dhruva.
like Dhruva. And then Pita was mentioning that I lost it.
Peter was
That
mentioning.
mother is the first guru, is that point?
Yeah, he said, all of you, Prabhupada, look at the room and look at the men. There were only men then. He said, all of you have great mothers. I can tell.
Because the son takes the qualities of the mother.
Yes.
But then, and lately in India, the last couple of generations, the word Mataji has become very disrespectful because so many men become so-called babas, and then they get a woman and they call her Mataji. And so you have these couples posing as renounced and living in Radhakund and Navadvip, and they're calling themselves Babajis, and they have a woman that's recently become their consort, and she's Mataji, and everyone's calling them Mataji and Babaji. So, so in India, especially in Vrindavan and Navadvip, people were shying away from using Mataji, and that's where Didi came in. Now Didi has become, it's just in the material world, we take something really nice, and even though we're in a transcendental community, somehow or other, we get everything muddy.
But in the same way, Mataji, like I was just reading in the Chaitanya Charitamrita how, the term Goswami, has been misused.
Right.
You get a lot of materialists, sense gratifiers, people who actually become pujaris just as a business. They actually, devotional service is a business for them.
Right, right.
And so, but Prabhupada says that they call themselves Goswami. Now, just because these people do that, and it's abhorrent, doesn't mean that we stop using Goswami.
No, I agree. I'm just saying that I'm not saying that nowadays everyone should call all of the women in the society Prabhu, but I don't think it should be a point that has to have a rule passed. No, you can't call them Prabhu. Yes, you call them Prabhu. No, you have to call them Mataji. No, you have to call them Didi. I don't, I just don't think it's
it's complicated. The pastimes of Lord Chaitanya are very difficult to understand. Very complicated in some ways. And I could see, if you go by Vedic culture, what it was, for example, there was the offering to the ancestors done by Advaita Acharya. And the first person to be served in that ceremony was a Muslim, was a total outcast for that so-called Vedic culture of the day. And the Brahmins that were at the house of Advaita Acharya got up and left the house. And Namacharya Haridas Thakur never forgot that. You offer me the first patra, the first offering to me, who I'm a Muslim. So externally, wow, you can say, he follows so strictly this and that and the other, but wait, it's not like that. And Advaita Acharya said, no, you are the number one who deserves to have this. You are the pure devotee. So then, they're out the window goes all these other rules and regulations. If you just, what are you going to stick to? The Vedic culture regulation that he said, no, you shouldn't eat. Brahmins cannot eat with Sudras, what to speak of outcasts.
But those Brahmins were smart. They weren't following Shastra, because Advaita Acharya was actually following Shastra. He was representing proper conclusion of Shastra. These other
Krishna
Brahmins,
himself, he can do, is that seventh canto, Srimad Bhagavatam.
Hello.
Krishna is
Yeah.
always Swatantra, independent. He'll do what he wants. He
We
wants
have
to
a que-
protect you, nobody can kill you. He wants to kill you, nobody will protect you.
We have
And
a
so
question.
yeah.
Sorry, go on, go on.
Sometimes you will see that somebody's protected. And Prabhupada said, we'll see he in his childhood. You know, this is actually a story of the beginning of Hiranyakashipu, and he goes to console his mother, Diti. You know, and he speaks really, actually, very high philosophy to them, not to lament that they're not their bodies. But then, you know, he goes on to address Brahma as the spirit, as the supreme personality of Godhead. So it's very interesting. But so in this, going back to rules and regulations and all, yeah, there are so that society will run smoothly. But the number one thing is to awaken love of God. How? By pleasing the spiritual master and applying that formula. If we have one formula, Prabhupada said, to attain Prem, because that's the goal of our movement, is to attain Prem. You know, it might change its rules. And we see that. We see
Sorry.
societies.
Nityalila has a question. She's asking, what was the culture at the time of Srila Prabhupada? Did Prabhupada call every woman Mataji? I didn't read such notions while going through historical journey review of Vedic civilization.
I don't think so.
Prabhupada always quotes that how Vedic India was still, you know, was in his childhood and like that. Things rapidly progressed to homogenization of the culture.
I mean,
India is forgetting its root culture rapidly due to media, due to, you know, the internet, movies, etc. Cultural weapons is.
You froze. I did a study on this and through the Veda base, and I found something like 6 or 7 letters where Prabhupada refers to Alice Prabhu, perhaps Malati Prabhu. There was a few instances like this where actually Prabhupada is documented by calling his daughters Prabhu. But I don't ever remember Prabhupada making it like a law across the board from now on so it's kind of a moot point, it seems. But please forgive me.
There was also the point where I forget which Mataji it was. I think it was Buri John Prabhu's wife.
Jagat Tarini.
Yeah, and she was saying, yes, but Prabhupada, like in the West, you know, like this is Indian culture and we're not Indian, you know, we're Western women. And Prabhupada very, very sweetly and gently said, yes, but even though you're not from India, you know, you should pick up the best from India and apply it to your life. So the point being that, okay, yes, you were born in the West. Yes, you're not used to these things, but these things that are the best things of Vedic, of Indian culture, then you should accept those. That it shouldn't be just rejected because, oh, I'm Western. And no, there's in India, the culture of India, as degraded as it's becoming, still is reflecting some of the Vedic culture. And so the best of that culture, we should accept. Now, the other thing, I just want to mention one other thing about the mother's role. Like Lord Chaitanya stayed in Jagannath Puri because his mother asked him to. Like he obeyed his mother and stayed in Jagannath Puri so that she can come and see him. But when he took sannyas, she, even though she had that authority over him, she also knew that my son took sannyas and I will not have him go against his spiritual master and his vows because of my attachment to him, because that would completely ruin him. It would ruin his reputation. If I, as a mother, use my authority over my son to have him go against his guru, it will ruin him. He might as well commit suicide. So Mother Sachi never put her son in a position where he had to compromise.
Are
his-
you quoting? Are
We
you
never-
quoting Mother Sachi saying these things? Or
No,
thinking these
not that
things?
she's saying these things, but she did. She did say that she would not have him reject his sannyas, because if she did, his reputation would be ruined.
Okay.
It'd be
At the
ruined.
same time, every day he was going. So that's the external. So you have external and internal.
Yes, but
And in that case, Lord Chaitanya was going every day
every day.
to honor her prasad,
That's
to
right.
honor Boga.
But he's God.
But he's God. So that's what I was saying. It's so complex because on one end is he's so strict. Look what happened with Chota Haridas.
Right.
Begging rice. He got rice from
From an
he
old
was sent
lady.
to Bhagavan Acharya sent him. Yeah. Hitimahiti sister. I think her Sikkimahiti's sister was Malani, I believe.
Half a person. Prabhupada called
And
her.
she actually was, it says, and that Lord Chaitanya would treat her. She was an associate of Radharani. She was a Manjari or a
He
Gopi.
considered a half.
So that
There were
but,
2.5 and 2.
Yeah.
How do you understand that, Baba Trini? What's your understanding that she's a half of an associate? What does that mean?
I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
understand how
So
Ramananda Roy was 3 personalities in one. So, I mean, if someone can be 3 people, why can't someone be a half?
yeah, I mean, we always try to measure. We always try to measure. That's why I said that these pastimes are not. They're easy, or we can the
Not
surface. Oh
linear.
yeah, I understood, and yeah, so clear. Oh, yeah, this is what they mean. That one we get in hot waters. The only one I think they can do say, well, I think it's like this. Is a pure devotee because he's total. He's pure. He's transferring via media, so he knows what to apply when and how to do it perfectly. I mean, you have Lord Chaitanya. Advaita Acharya brings in, when he first takes sannyas. And he's cheated by Nityananda. He said, yes, I'm taking you to Vrindavan and then in Shantipur to the delight of a whole Nadia, and everybody comes, but the first prasadam, he said, oh, you just come. He said, but I'm a sannyas, I can't, he was a perfect sannyas. And at the same time, he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Advaita Acharya said, don't try to confuse things here. I know who you are. So sit down and have prasadam. And the prasadam was the most sumptuous thing, prasadam for like many, many men. And Nityananda Prabhu, who's God himself, he said, oh, this is not enough. I've been fasting for 3 days. Give me a break. I want more.
And then Advaita Acharya starts insulting him, right? And telling him,
He calls him a reject
Paramahamsa.
Who can understand those pastimes?
No, we can. It's like, some devotees who took part, we heard, at one point, Lalita Prasad was the son of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. He was staying actually next door to our place in Mayapur. And devotees, Achyutananda Prabhu was telling us the story, how he probably was one of the first ones to go see him. And he had manuscripts of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And Achyutananda Prabhu was saying that they were so important. He said he wanted to document Prabhupada. He came running back to Prabhupada telling him that. And then Prabhupada said, yes, these are very, very important. Anyhow, he convinced Yaduvar, to go and then the word spread out. Oh, Lalita Prasad is there. And then, things happened. Something was said by Lalita, and Prabhupada said, no, stop going to see him. But he also warned us. He said, never come between. And other arguments that might have existed, but we thought they were there. Like, Pita mentions the name of one of his godbrothers. So Prabhupada said, he ruined my spiritual master society. Tirtha Maharaj has, Srila Tirtha Maharaj ruined my spiritual. And so they came to tell Prabhupada he has enter, he has left his body. And what happens is, well, Prabhupada, back to Godhead. Back to God. Prabhupada, you mentioned that he ruined your spiritual master societies, but he's done so much service for the spiritual master. So
was it Pita Prabhu who said that Prabhupada had said that he's the only son, that the rest of his god brothers are daughters of the spiritual master, and he's the only son because he's the only one who he inherited the business of his spiritual father, the mission, the preaching worldwide mission, and the rest stayed at home like daughters. Was that Pita?
No, that was Lochanananda. We heard that.
That was Lochanananda, right?
Yeah.
Lochanananda.
But some devotees who have taken inspiration from the Gaudiya Math, they may become offended by that. And I think that's crazy because Prabhupada himself said it. So, why take it as a criticism of Prabhupada? I mean, Prabhupada can say what he wants. We're not saying that, but it seems even if you repeat that, then you become an offender.
Well, I right through the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Prabhupada is as hard as a thunderbolt when it comes to qualification of the world acharya, what you define the world acharya, what the world acharya, like his activities are, clearly pointing at himself as the world acharya.
Uh-huh.
And those who aren't, those who don't take up the mission of their spiritual master. I mean, it's in the books. I mean, we can't blot them out. They're there.
We're not going to edit them.
Like we don't have to. Like it's not that he was offending anyone else, but the truth of the matter is what Prabhupada said.
Nanda Patni has had to go. She appreciated our discussion.
Oh, Nanda
Oh,
Patni.
Jai Nanda. I have
Thank
one
you
question
so much for coming.
before
You're
everyone
so
disappears.
busy.
Okay,
What
yes.
was the verse? What was the verse we were reading from Bhagavad Gita?
Oh.
Chapter 1, verses 21 through 22.
Yeah. And we only got, let's see, how far did we get? We only got, I think, not even halfway through. But it's anyway, more nectar for next time.
Gore, you're a troublemaker.
I know it's all my fault.
he thrives on it.
Jivan Muktas inspires me, though.
Oh,
I'm going to pass the buck to him. I hear these points from him all the time. And plus, I have to read his book, which is filled with quotes like this, 600 of them. But it's good that I loved it. It was great. I mean, it's
that's
not
wonderful. A book of Prabhupada's quotes on the.
Maybe we can read Jivan Mukta's book one of these days.
Oh no! It's a specific focus. It's a focus on that whole cultural thing. And I mean, if we want to do that, it's all Prabhupada's quotes anyway. So
right.
But I just did it. I just wanted to show that it's like in a prose form. So it flows, right? So
nice.
It's fascinating what's going on right now with the Vrindavan Research Institute changing hands, and there's a new management who had opened to ISKCON 32,000 grantas.
Wow.
Written, yeah.
Letters handwritten by Lord Chaitanya to Rupa Goswami.
Really?
No
Yes.
way.
Yeah. And letters handwritten by Rupa Goswami.
Wow.
Poems
Narottam
by
Das
them.
Thakur.
And we didn't have access to that before. They wouldn't let us go in there.
No, the our management, they were more focusing on preservation and nobody touches it. But now the new management understand why did this Goswamis and his disciples like Narottam Das Thakur, who's in there too. There's Padavali. No, Padyavali is a book written
by Rupa Goswami.
But this other book that I was listening, there's a 10-part series, lectures by Indradyumna Swami. Maharaj, that fantastic. I mean, he, I mean, I have such great appreciation for him.
It's
and
all the
now-
work of Hari Prasad, as far as I know. Hari
Yeah, he
Prasad.
has a team, and there's several scholars in ISKCON who are translating, and his goal is to publish. The institute wants to publish this work.
It has the whole
And
story.
but
of
my
Govinda
thing
Ji.
was that in that the history of what occurs in Jaipur with a group of Ramanuja Sampradaya coming to dominate the worship of Govindaji, and then this particular group was an accepted branch of the Sri Sampradaya. I believe Sri Sampradaya.
It was
They said it wasn't moral.
the Ramanandis.
The
All right,
Ramanandis.
back
It was
to
a-
morality.
Back to morality and rules and regulations. They said there cannot be that Krishna, since he's not married to Radharani, she should not be on the altar. And that was the
They
undue
took Radharani
influence.
off the altar.
Really? The
And they
Ramanuja
tried to-
people?
Yes,
They
and,
forced the king to do such.
and they
but the
tried to
king-
kill
it was
Vishwanath
all right
Chakravarti.
For him, wait.
Okay, go ahead.
So the Govindaji first went to the house. Vishwanath Chakravarti. It was asked to him what to do with Govindaji, and they were bringing him closer and closer to the capital of Rajasthan because of persecution by Aurangzeb. He ruled for such a long time. He was born in 1616 and passed away, died in 1707. And so even Rupa Goswami wasn't there when the temple of Govindaji was finished, was done. Jiva Goswami was there. He was invited, and on the spot he composed an ashtakam, Mandir Ashtakam, to the temple. Then Aurangzeb proceeded to destroy. There's a whole story. I mean, it's like 10-hour, 12-hour long, just presenting some of the
This
story.
was being told by
By
Indradumna.
Indradumna Swami. You can go to his YouTube channel.
I watched some of them. I watched some.
Yeah.
These are amazing. It's
Amazing,
10.
amazing.
It's all on the series
But
of
there is so much.
Govindaji.
So yeah,
and Rupa Goswami and yeah.
yeah. So ended up that the deity of Radharani was taken back to the king's quarters, and actually by tradition, actually Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur said it was okay, it was all right for the king to have him in his possession, in his
Sure.
Mahan.
Which
Sure.
king?
Mahan.
This is Akbar?
No.
No, Akbar was
No,
a couple of generations.
The Raj was Ram Singh
Okay.
at that time. At the end, the first one was Man Singh. Maharaj
Akbar
Man Singh was.
wasn't Akbar the first.
Please. He was the commander general of the troops of Akbar, the Emperor Akbar, who actually donated the plot of land and also the money of 1 year revenue from his court. It was nowadays would be millions and millions and millions of dollars to build a temple under Man Singh's supervision, to build a temple of Govindaji. See, Man Singh, the Akbar asked him to go and suppress rebellions in Bengal. And so he was a great general. He had done 68 campaigns, victorious campaigns, and for Akbar. So he was
I
a,
watch it. This is so late.
anyhow, yeah, but
Yeah, it's almost 10
Anyhow.
o'clock here.
yeah. So these kings were from Rajasthan, and that's where the deity, after 50 years, finally Govindaji gets to Jaipur, and Jaipur wasn't even there. So the new king, the great grandson of Man Singh, builds Jaipur. And he did a replica of Vrindavan. So anyhow, the thing is that based on the moral Vedic things, this Brahmins, this Ramanandi pushed the king to get rid of Radharani. So, and also saying that due to the undue influence of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, the king had been in a way diluted, because this sampradaya wasn't an authentic sampradaya. It didn't have its own commentary of the Brahma Sutras. And we knew actually that we did, the natural commentary of Srimad Bhagavatam, but that wasn't accepted. And so we have Govinda Dasi about Baladev Vidyabhushana. So when is it moral? What is more important? You know, when they come to ask for
They disappeared. I don't know what happened. They froze, I think. All right. Anyway, I'm going to call it a night. And I thank you very, very much, everyone, for coming. Nitya Leela, it's fantastic coming again. Thank you. I'm glad that Krishna freed you from your job so that you can join in with us. And we're going through the Nectar of Instruction. Monday will be on verse number 1, which will be Tuesday for you. So I hope you can escape again from your job to join us. I'm sorry, I don't have those letters. It was a research I did just once. How many times Prabhupada called women Prabhu? And so I found 7 letters, something like that. But I didn't make an article out of it. I'm going to say goodnight, Baba Trini and Hari Prabhu. It's 9:45 here. It's late for Jivan Mukta Prabhu and I and Krishna Chandra Prabhu.
Good night. Hare Krishna.
Panchakalpa
And
Trubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Ila Prabhupada ki Jai Nityananda Hari